This is what we do. Tell stories.
Ay kwento natin yan.
We tell them in words,
DZUP 1602, ang opisyal na istasyong
music,
Alternative music fix ang DZUP sound trip.
images, and experiences. We tell them on air,
Sa coverage mo,
online, and
diba?
on ground. We tell stories of the people. We tell stories for the people. We tell the stories of the university,
Ang pagpasok sa UP, parang tungkol sa mga
of the community, of the nation, and even beyond.
On VOA Asia as we celebrate
Radio Day.
We tell what we know, what we see, what we cover, and what we discover. We tell the stories of those who can't.
nating mga kababayang lumad ay kolektibong katawag
We tell the stories that should be told,
nating epekto nitong train law para sa ating mga mahihirap na
should be heard,
Ang mensahe ko sa mga bata at sa mga magulang, alamin natin ang kasaysayan.
and should be known.
outright na pagkikipil sa media. Ito ay isang malaking
We tell stories that are true,
Mga pangyayaring kaugnay
Related
ng
violence.
tinatawag natin Diliman Commune.
stories that question, stories that transform.
Instead of 55, we should say
This is what we do. Tell your stories for you, with you. This is our story.
Pinili ko doon sa mga nananatili para pagsilbihan ng UP.
We're not just radio. We are DZUP.
The Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility addresses critical concerns confronting the Philippines. Formed soon after the democratic restoration in 1986, it promoted freedom and responsibility as joint values, without which one or the other has little meaning. The newfound freedom involves not just media professionals but the public they serve. And like all liberties, freedom of the press has its limits, for the simple reason that it is vulnerable to abuse. Against this background, CMFR was organized in 1989 as a non-stock non-profit organization. CMFR has 3 flagship programs: Promotion of Media Ethics and Responsibility, which monitors coverage and identifies weaknesses and failings in the practice; Press Freedom Protection and Media Defense, that documents attacks and threats against the media, as well as campaigns and advocacies upholding their autonomy; and the recognition of journalism excellence and best practice, designed to encourage quality in news reporting. All 3 flagship programs of CMFR are linked by the larger purpose to help develop a free press that would serve as the 4th pillar of democracy in the Philippines. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our MC and moderator this morning. Melinda Quintos de Jesus is the founder and executive director of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. She was among the women columnists of Bulletin Today who wrote critically of the Marcos regime. After she was eased out of the job in 1983, she worked as editor of Veritas News Weekly, a news magazine on the front lines of the alternative press that galvanized public will to question the dictatorship. Her career in media includes columns for leading broadsheets, among them the Philippine Daily Inquirer and the Philippine Star. She co-hosted a political TV talk show with Jose Marie Velez and lawyer Perfecto Fernandez, as well as a column on the air for radio. She organized CMFR in 1989 and developed its core programs: media monitoring, press freedom protection, and the recognition of best practices in journalism. Ms. De Jesus is a founding member of the Board of Trustees of the Southeast Asian Press Alliance. She has served on the Council of the International Freedom of Expression Exchange and on the Steering Committee of the World Movement for Democracy. She was also journalist in residence at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and a fellow of the Shorenstein Center on the Press, Politics, and Public Policy, which is based in Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. In recognition of her journalistic work, Ms. De Jesus received the Benigno E. Aquino Jr. Fellowship for Professional Development and the Hildegard Award for Print Journalism. Once again, Ms. Melinda Quintos De Jesus.
Thank you, Jeds, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. Oops. There we go. Senior Associate Justice Marvic M.V.F. Leonen, and the other guests from the office of the Supreme Court. Thank you very much for being here. Honorable guests, family and friends of the late Honorable Jaime V. Ongpin, co-workers in the media and in the field of media development, friends, ladies, and gentlemen, on behalf of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, or CMFR for short, a warm welcome to our annual event, the Jaime V. Ongpin Journalism Seminar, on its 35th year since its launching in 1990. I know that those of you who are familiar with the program look forward to the open forum, when you can ask questions of any member of the panel or all of the panel members about anything raised during the panel discussion or even issues that were not discussed. We try to give as much time to this portion of the program when the audience can engage journalists about the issues in the news, about their coverage, and the problems and current concerns we have about the state of affairs in our country. Preparing for the program about a month ago, I had noted how quiet things were on the political front, and not surprisingly, things changed very quickly. Each year, the program is held against the lively context of Philippine politics, which assures us of genuine audience engagement. The program is different in that the subject itself is the media, and the journalists who are fully engaged in the coverage of the news are members of the audience, and therefore we expect that many questions are raised whatever subject or concern one may have. You are free to raise them in that part of our program. This year we are, for the first time, at the Media Center TV studio of the University of the Philippines College of Media and Communication. On video, UP Diliman Chancellor Edgardo Carlo L. Vistan opens this program with his welcome remarks.
Ms. Melinda Quintos de Jesus, Executive Director of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, or CMFR, esteemed journalists, faculty colleagues, students, and guests, on behalf of the University of the Philippines Diliman, it is my distinct honor to welcome you to this year's Jaime V. Ongpin Journalism Seminar. UP Diliman stands as a stronghold of critical thinking and academic integrity. These values align closely with CMFR's mission to defend press freedom and journalistic excellence. Both institutions are rooted in a shared dedication to truth-telling and evidence-based dialogue, principles that drive our classrooms, guide our research, and shape the public conversations we support. Now, on its 35th year, the Jaime V. Ongpin Journalism Seminar is more than just a tradition. It has become a living testament to the power of investigative journalism to spark inquiry, challenge injustice, and enlighten the public. By honoring outstanding work each year, the seminar reaffirms the media's vital democratic role to expose wrongdoing, amplify marginalized voices, and hold those in power accountable. This role is especially urgent today, as our nation faces a governance crisis characterized by systemic corruption, most recently in flood control projects. The need for fearless, thorough journalism has never been clearer. The JVO seminar reminds us that critique is not cynicism. It is a civic duty. It is the press executing its watchdog role, paving the way for integrity to take hold. We may not claim that journalism alone can dismantle entrenched corruption, but we can confidently say that good journalism educates the public, sharpens civic judgment, and builds the foundation for collective action. It is the quiet work of democratic renewal. UP Diliman, through the College of Media and Communication, is proud to host this year's seminar. Many of our students and alumni have participated in past JVO seminars, and our faculty have served as discussants, recognized not only for their scholarship, but also for their contributions to the field. This collaboration affirms our belief that journalism education must be rooted in real-world practice, ethical inquiry, and public service. In hosting the JVO seminar, we affirm without hesitation that we have not given up on this country. We have not lost faith in the democratic promise of the media. Today's gathering is a celebration of the faith and the enduring partnership between the academia and the press. Thank you, and may this seminar inspire the next generation of journalists to pursue truth with courage and clarity.
I will begin by calling on the schools who are present, and I would like to ask the members of these schools to please stand up so that we can give you a bit of an applause and appreciation for your presence this morning. In alphabetical order: Adamson University, Ateneo de Manila University, De La Salle College of St. Benil, Miriam College, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Muntinlupa, the Polytechnic University of the Philippines in Santa Mesa, St. Paul University, Manila, St. Paul University, Quezon City, St. Scholastica's College, Manila, the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Thank you very much once again for being such a wonderful audience, and it is always a comfort preparing for this program to find people who are interested and wanting to connect again with CMFR and this public event. Through the years, and including the years of the pandemic, the program is assured of a national audience given the continuing interest of the academic community, both faculty and students. CMFR is pleased to announce that the program is live-streamed on CMFR's Facebook page, as well as on the Facebook pages of the UP College of Media and Communication and Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines and DZUP. Please feel free to post online about today's program using hashtag JVOJS 2025. We are happy to welcome our virtual audience wherever they are. As each year, it is with great pride that we present journalists doing outstanding work for much deserved recognition. We call on the national media community to get to know them, holding this event so they can take pause and connect the communities to lessons beyond their own personal experience. Despite the challenges that confront the press and its development in a developing democracy like ours, there are Filipino journalists who give us reason to hope and to believe in the meaning and purpose of their constant struggle. At this time, I would like to acknowledge and to welcome the different tertiary institutions, or have I done that? So thank you for being here. Our program this year holds a panel discussion and an open forum. A brief history recalls that the program began to encourage providing incentives first for in-depth reporting or investigative journalism. In time, the program extended its recognition of all kinds of reporting that make up the practice of journalism, whatever medium, on whatever medium, print, TV, and online. This program has included those who work in the background and in the prominent and significant roles in the business of producing and delivering the news. Editors, for example, and on TV, those involved in producing the news and public affairs, which requires another level of CMFR monitoring. The program reflects the breadth and depth of journalism at work, its various formats that reach out to every kind of news consumer, and you know the variety that is out there, demonstrating its impact on public and political affairs, and the influence of the media and its practice that should invite students and those working in the field to take pause and to consider the significance and influence of the practice itself. It is not without reason that the center is called Media, Freedom, and Responsibility. It is our hope that the program can present the different kinds and types of journalists and the work that they do, and in the ever-increasing range of media formats, and there will be more as technology develops, constitute a challenge to the field of media to produce news and commentary that will keep the public better informed, more skeptical, and questioning what public officials claim they do, and more curious about the business of government and the work and responsibility of public officials. The program is designed to engage the public, as it hopes to suggest to students, the core of future journalists and media workers, that responsibility that comes with their work in the media. The press is not called the fourth estate without reason. It represents not the power of journalists, but their purpose, which is to empower the public with information with which to check whether those in power are providing the requisite service to enable Filipinos to live lives of dignity, their rights protected and assured, and their opportunities enhanced by the quality of public service. In an age of social media and the claim of everyone to their share of public attention, there is a need for a more discerning media audience. The various tools of dis and misinformation require the public to be critical consumers of the news products. In this field, CMFR hopes to help to form a more critical audience that can point to the good and the not so good in the news, works that are cheered or jeered by CMFR. This ongoing process helps to identify journalists who bear watching, for choosing difficult subjects, and those areas of concern that do not fall easily under assigned beats. The work of CMFR, after all, is to identify quality journalism and to call attention to it, which is not always available even when the press enjoys fullness of freedom. The task is to help individuals to be better informed citizens who can engage in public affairs, especially in the ever important selection of our leaders in public office. To describe part of the process of selection of journalist panelists, I am calling on my colleague and member of the board, Mr. Ed Lingao, news anchor of TV5, who will introduce the members of the selection committee this year. The process goes to the findings of CMFR's monitor, which notes the good work that is worthy of praise and those that have to be criticized. The choices we make are limited for the simple reason of the physical limits and the limits of our resources. And we can only have so many who can sit on the table, and we can only invite so many, and those are not even all available at all times. We wish we could have more who are deserving, but we are happy to call to the table the following panelists. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Ed, but you can bear that, right? I am calling on Ed Lingao for his part of the selection.
Oopsie. Good morning. Esteemed guests, including, of course, Justice Leonen. Now it really feels like I'm back in UP. Members of the CMFR Board of Trustees and the staff, panelists, professors, and most of all, our good friends and colleagues to be, hopefully, in media. Good morning to you. It is very good to be home. I have many special memories of this place, although nung panahon ko wala pa to. Several years as a student, several times as a guest or resource person, at least once as a contestant of Binibining IMC. Hindi niyo alam yun? Okay. My task this morning is to give you an idea how the panelists for this year were chosen and the people who had a part in the choosing. This is in the spirit of transparency that we hope would be emulated by others, including but not limited to the President, the Vice President, our beloved legislators and the ICI, and so on and so forth. Never too late to hope. There is a common misconception that the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility takes this on as a seasonal task. That 1 month before the JVO Awards, the staff scrambles to fill in names and then go on a YouTube binge and online surfing to make their selections. That is farthest from the truth. For a full 12 months of the year, the staff of the CMFR Media Monitors section compiles a list of cheers and jeers with the best and sometimes the worst examples of journalism this country has seen in the past year. You can peruse these cheers and jeers at the CMFR's Philippine Journalism Review reports that you can find online. Of course, the list of cheers is far from final. The editor and the staff of the PRR refined that list further before presenting a short list of recommendees to the selection committee composed of senior journalists. Sila yun. Mas bata ako. This year, in addition to being current or former practitioners, all the selection committee members except one are also trustees of the CMFR. And so as such, the selection committee members do not rely solely on the shortlist drafted by the Media Monitor staff and editor. Journalists, of course, will always have their own ideas, and so the list is further refined, expanded, or reduced, depending on who else the selection committee members believe did exemplary work in the past year. Now, the other misconception is that the CMFR and the selection committee recognize only one kind of journalism. Now, in looking for the best, we mean those reports that may be investigative or explanatory or analyses or interpretative. They just need to be outstanding and exemplary in terms of relevance, impact, and so on. Enough to serve as models of compliance with the professional and ethical standards that we hold dear in journalism. All in all, the CMFR staff and the selection committee had 3 meetings in addition to several phone and email exchanges. We should also add that not all the journalists in the list drawn up by the selection committee always agree to be part of the panel. Some have had to beg off for reasons of scheduling and in one case because of health. And we should also mention that the PJR reports and the PJR Monitor have been around for around 35 years. 35 years. In other words, these are institutions that are older than perhaps the combined ages of 2 of you in the audience. We mention this to emphasize that the media monitors do not come into being and are not specifically intended to merely draw up the list of panelists for the JVO seminar. The recognition we hold today is only a byproduct of what the CMFR has taken upon itself to do, to recognize the best practices and to critique the mediocre and the bad. It is important and relevant because it comes at a time when so many people now say, mabuti na lamang may social media. Hindi na kami naniniwala sa news media. What we have here today is our way of saying, mabuti na lang may news media. At please lang, huwag kayong umasa sa social media. Itong news media, sila po ang aasahan mong mag-cover. Lumusong sa baha, gumapang sa putik, umakyat ng bundok, humukay ng mga dokumento, maghabol ng source, at manggisa ng interviewee. Hindi sila keyboard warriors lamang na manonood lamang sa YouTube tapos gagawa ng opinion para mag-viral sa Facebook o sa TikTok. Now, allow us to introduce the members of the selection committee whom I am requesting to stand up to wave or to bow, your choice. You're, of course, Tina Monson Palma. Who does not know Tina Monson Palma? I was in primary school, I was already watching Tina. Hi, ma'am. Yeah, Verhel Santos. I don't think Verhel is here. Verhel is a former publisher and chairman chairman of Board of Editors of Business World. We have Kaloy Conde. I don't think he's here either. Former researcher of the Asia Division of Human Rights Watch, and of course, the former Philippine correspondent of the New York Times and the International Herald Tribune. We have Lorna Calao Tirol. Ma'am Lorna. Yeah, there you go. She's a veteran journalist and a veteran editor and a former ombudsman of the Philippine Daily Inquirer. And we have myself. And we have Melinda Quintos de Jesus. Director of the CMFR, also a veteran journalist who serves as the participant moderator in our activity. Now, allow me to return the microphone to Melinda for the next phase, the more exciting phase, actually, of today's activity. Ma'am.
And so I think I started a little bit too early calling on the panelists, whom I will now introduce to the audience, and I would like them to please stand and take their places where their names are on the table for the audience to see. In alphabetical order, Lian Buwan. Lian is a senior investigative reporter at Rappler. Lian has reported extensively on the war on drugs of the Duterte administration, the anomalies in high-level procurements, politics in the judiciary, prison conditions, and human rights abuses, all very unhappy topics. One of our most recent projects in the Rappler newsroom is the Polity Contractor Tracker, which lists public officials who have links to government contractors, very current at this point. Lian is currently the Vice President of the Association of Journalists covering the International Criminal Court, or AJICC. She also served on the 2020 to 2024 board of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, or NUJP. Lian has a Master of Laws degree in Human Rights from the Birkbeck College, University of London, where she was a Chevening Scholar. She obtained her journalism undergraduate degree from the University of Santo Tomas. Christina Chi. Christina is a multimedia reporter for Philstar.com. She covers various beats, including foreign affairs, education, and human rights. Christina currently leads her newsroom special coverage of foreign influence operations and writes investigative reports on disinformation. Christina finished her journalism degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman in 2023, and has since worked for Philstar.com. Dwight De Leon. Dwight is a senior multimedia reporter for Rappler. He currently covers Congress after previous assignments on the presidential, electoral, and local government beats. Over the past year, Dwight has been investigating public works corruption and reporting on the intersection of business and political interests in the country. Before joining Rappler, he worked as program producer and writer for several shows on the ABS-CBN News Channel, or ANC. In college, he oversaw student programs for DZUP, the campus radio station of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and he finished his degree in broadcast communication in 2017. I'm now calling on Carmela Fonbuena. Carmela is a multi-awarded investigative journalist who has served as executive director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, or PCIJ. She did this for 5 years, following 2 decades of field and investigative reporting for Filipino news organizations, including Newsbreak magazine and Rappler, as well as for the international newspaper, The Guardian. Carmela wrote a book on the 2017 Marawi siege, which was nominated for the 2021 We Told Pilecki International Book Award. She co-authored 4 other books on Philippine elections and government contracts. Carmela earned her BA in journalism from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and her MA in political communications from Cardiff University as a British Chevening scholar. Edson Guido. Edson is the Chief Data and Election Analyst of TV5, where he also serves as an on-air analyst, drawing clear and compelling insights from complex data. From 2017 to 2022, he was head of data analytics of ABS-CBN News, launching the first dedicated data journalism unit in Philippine broadcast media and producing award-winning reports. He served as resident analyst across the various platforms of ABS-CBN, reporting on elections and the COVID-19 pandemic. Edson earned his bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of the Philippines School of Economics, where he is currently a PhD candidate. Dominic Gutoman. Dominic is a journalist at Bulatlat, an independent and non-profit media outfit that focuses on human rights reporting. He has covered stories on civil and political rights, international human rights mechanisms, gender inclusion, and children's welfare. He also serves as the community manager of Bulatlat. He managed training programs for community and campus journalists for the 2025 elections. Dominic regularly facilitates workshops on human rights journalism, media and information literacy, digital rights, and press freedom advocacy. Dominic finished his degree in broadcasting at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines in 2022. So we have everyone on the table. And are we ready? Yes? I rely on a tried and true icebreaker, which is to ask our panel, how did you become a journalist? What caused you to drift into this field? I find that this question really reveals all kinds of different reasons, but generally comes up is that our panelists usually discover early enough that they have no joy working with numbers or maybe challenged by numbers. Not everyone, however, is numerically challenged. In fact, those with a mind for numbers find a special opportunity to create stories that come from statistics, the stories that numbers tell. So, with or without numbers, would anyone do me the favor of getting us started by taking the question, how did you get started in the field of journalism? A soft question and a friendly one, and something that most students appreciate that we ask.
I'll start because I have an answer. And I tell this all the time. I was watching Eyewitness as a child in my living room, and I watched a documentary, I think hosted by Jay Taruk, about the Gloria Arroyo's indicator of what poverty means. And he did follow that by following a corporate guy in Makati and a tricycle driver, I think, from Tondo, basically just to tell the story of what poverty means to different people, what economy means to different people. And I think dun ko decide na if I can do this also, I'd be okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
First, it's nice to be home. It's been a while since I've been back here at MassCom. I think when I'm BA Journalism in MassCom, but when I took up BA Journalism, I wasn't really sure I was going to be a journalist. You still entertain ideas of doing other courses. But it's really the College of Mass Communication, the professors in mass communication, being taught by Luis Teodoro, changes you. You think you just listen to his stories during classes, but he inspires you, the professors we've had here in UP, Professor Yvonne Chua, all the professors here, I think inspires you when they tell you about the history of the Philippines and the role of the media in forming the democracy of the Philippines. So you're kind of trapped. They always say it's not a profession you choose, it's a calling. It's like a and I hope, and I'm sure many of you will have the same track moving forward.
Does anyone also want to share? Yes? Please go ahead.
Ako po, I grew up around a loving community who believed I could be good at what they thought journalism was. My mom, my uncle, my grandma, my sister, and even my school principal, Mrs. Amako. I think she's watching the live stream because I sent her the link. I know this is a huge honor. That's why I'm very happy to be here. And she really encouraged me to be part of the school paper when I was 8. And I remember the feeling of excitement when I saw my first poem get published in the school paper. And she encouraged me to join press conferences, yung DSPC, RSPC, and SPC. Although later in life, I would realize that journalism is so much more about collecting medals or collecting certificates, and we operate at the edges of power, so it is a huge privilege and responsibility for us to be able to hold power to account, and that's why now I feel like I became a journalist because of that.
Thank you. And yes?
I initially didn't want to be a journalist po, pero ako na-cement yung kapasyahan na maging journalist noong kino-cover namin yung Oplan sa Uron when I was in a campus journalist at PUP. Noong 2018, there's a series of killings in Negros, and the family of those victims of extrajudicial killings in Negros went to here in Manila, in UP Diliman particularly, to share the stories on why, kung bakit kinakailangan nilang magbakwit doon sa lugar nila at kinakailangan nilang i-share yung story nila, kung ano yung na-witness nila, kung paano pinatay yung pamilya nila. Tragic, but at the same time, you realize na yung journalism, hindi mo naman siya pinursue dahil sa alam mo yun, privileges, or alam mo in the first place na yung journalism hindi siya high-paying job. And especially in the alternative media where we work pro bono, you choose journalism dahil nakita mo yung pangangailangan for it. Especially sa panahon na talamak yung human rights violations, Ayun lang.
Thank you. And we might as well go through the panel, right?
With myself, it really began because I was part of the first batch of K-12. And of course, maraming nagalit. Maraming na-agitated sa batch namin about sa ganong first program. And it led me to have a drive of wanting answers, wanting explanations, even eventually wanting accountability. So nag-start talaga siya with something very personal. But then I also solidified the decision to become a journalist during the pandemic, which is where I spent nearly all of my college years. Na I saw the rights abuses, I saw the lack of accountability, and that's when I knew na hindi lang siya about a profession of accountability but also empathy with all the victims of the rights abuses nung pandemic.
Thank you. And
first of all, good morning everyone. Good morning to my co-panelists, CMFR Board of Trustees and staff. Good morning to future journalists. So happy to see a lot of future journalists here today. And of course, good morning to my mom, the most important person in this room for me. She's here to support. So ako na yung last na sumagot kasi gusto ko, to Ma'am Melinda's point when she asked this question, a lot of journalists are saying that they don't like numbers, they don't like math. Ako naman baliktad. I really love numbers. That's really my background, and my background in analytics has really shaped the way I approach journalism, which is evidence first, clarity always, but of course, public service always at the center. And so I first started working the World Bank, and that's when we had the data journalism seminar. May mga taga-ABS-CBN na nandun, and that's when they discussed with me if I would love to do this kind of work sa ABS-CBN. So that's sa World Bank kasi we were doing reports on the economy, GDP, inflation, but I didn't really see the impact of it. May impact, pero nakita ko kasi sa ABS-CBN. I first entered through ABS-CBN University. I was asked to be a professor there, giving lectures to journalists. And I would work hand in hand with them in 2015. And then they would report about inflation, they would report about the traffic. And the impact was really direct. And kita mo agad when it's reported sa TV Patrol, kita mo may epekto sa gobyerno. So that's when I started. I was, si Jing Reyes talked to me and asked me if I wanted to do something about data journalism. And so we started the first data journalism unit in broadcast industry. And at that time, we were doing stories about the economy. Kasi pag inflation, right, 2% inflation, 5% inflation, it's just a mere number, 7%. What does it mean for the ordinary Filipino? That's when we come in and put context and go deeper. Hindi tayo parang emotions lang It's facts, not feelings. No? So that's where I started. But then, during the pandemic, that's when I really saw the impact of numbers and data. Because DOH would just report every day the number of COVID cases. Right? 500, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. It became so high that people were like, 20,000, parang wala lang yan But you have to make people care about those numbers. Imagine 20,000 cases, that's a full pack Araneta Coliseum positive in just one day. And that's even underreported. So doon ko nakita talaga yung impact ng data journalism. And it's not merely reporting na he said, she said. It's something that's evidence-based, something that's factual and objective. And it really gave a different layer of reporting to our newscast.
Thank you, everyone, and a round of applause for that rousing beginning to our program. We have all been talking about the changes that have affected the way the public uses the media and the way the public relates to news. And a person of my age would probably have a completely different experience from most of those students who are here, who are immersed in different ways with news and all kinds of news. What may not be news to me, or what I may not have any interest in, constitute the world that separates all these generations. I've always looked at the media as a way of putting all of us together, a community that is connected by the same sources of information. And it is the only way, I think, that a society can move forward, that we share a perspective that brings us together, that even if we do disagree in the way we approach a problem, that we have the basics and that we share the same point of view and that we can proceed as one with all our different ideas. So we continue with the questions to the panel and ask about the impact of social media, which may be different on all of you, and its endless presence, which has affected, definitely changed what used to be the primacy of mainstream news, at least for generations before the advent of social media. As some of you are quite young, you may not be affected by these as changes, as this is the world into which you were born, right? And your point of view is completely different from those of us who have had to make adjustments to the constant cycle of information that we have to deal with through the day. The advent of social media and the speed of news cycle should raise questions about the issues that take time to ponder. And I am wondering if anyone is worrying about whether we do take the time to think about how much news we absorb and where this takes us, and where and how a society that takes all of its sources of news can begin to think about the problems that confront us on a daily basis. So, if social media is the way of keeping up with the news, has the meaning of news changed for you as journalists, as ordinary persons? If you were to separate yourself from what you do for a living and what you do as a job, is the world of news so different at this point in time that you have to take pause and say, where does this put me and where is my purpose and what should I do about it? Can we talk about this? Leon is ready.
I don't think the meaning of the news changed for me at all. I think mula dun sa kinagisnan kong generation of TV, print, until, because I'm a millennial, hindi naman nagbago eh. It's still the same. The information still the same. The news gathering still the same. Siguro magbabago lang ngayon, pwede ka nang mag-DM or mag-PM instead of going there. But I think what changed is the distribution. My guideline for me, especially while I was covering the judiciary, is kapag nagsusulat ako, how do I tell this to a friend who does not care about the judiciary? That has always been my guideline for myself. And I think that is more important now because our social media ecosystem is ruled by algorithm. How many of you actually follow news organizations instead of just watching what your algorithm feeds you? So the challenge, I think, for me and for all the journalists is to, how do you break into the algorithm? So my challenge for me has always been, okay, kung ang guideline ko dati nung nagsusulat ako at nagkiklik pa kayo ng balita, paano ko to sasabihin sa friend ko in writing? My challenge now for me, and I speak for the rest of the Rappler team, paano nyo makocompete yung mga influencer na kinakausap yung mga nanonood sila sa screen? So I think what has changed really is just the distribution, the grammar, and the language. But the meaning of news has not changed for me at all.
It has not changed for you. Do you think it has changed, however, for the audience that you are addressing your news, the news that you deliver? Go ahead.
I will agree with Lian. The news elements, I hope, should not change because these are the important things we should cover. But we differentiate news element to the audiences, what the audiences want, and to the method. The news element, I feel, shouldn't change much, but how we understand our audiences so that they can understand the important stories that we need to tell them, that changes. We have to have a better understanding of how audiences get their news and in what form and in what language. I think those are the things that change, but the elements should stay the same.
I actually think it's a question that would draw all kinds of answers from the audience. And would you like to share your...
Actually ako po, siguro based from experience. There was a time last August, 3 days before ako magbakasyon ng Cebu, Bohol, I already published my text story on Congressman Guardiola about the public works contracts that he had secured. But I felt like in order for this story to reach wider audiences, I had to publish a video explainer because I know that the audiences are consuming the reports, our reports, hindi na masyado sa pagbabasa ng text stories namin, but through vertical video stories that are published online. So kahit nasa airport na ako, I was still editing my video because I felt like in order for the story to have an impact, hindi lang dapat yung mga taong mas masanay magbasa, but also people who consume the news through their social media platforms. So ganun na po yung adjustment namin, at least sa Rappler. Now when we publish a story, when we publish a text story, as much as possible, we also think of audiences who prefer consuming the story in visual form.
Does that not bother us who deal with words? That words are no longer carrying the value that we have been taught with about how we use words. Should make a difference, right? And now I hear a panel just basically saying, well, this is happening, and so what? I mean, should there not be a revolution among journalists to promote the value of words? Because words are ideas, and without words, we have no thoughts. It bothers me, and I can't let it go at this point, and I would like someone else to join me in saying, how do we preserve the value of words? How do we keep ideas in our discussions so that there is a point in our discussion? Because what do we get if we have no ideas?
This is the point where I will defend long form. I think we talk a lot about the need to understand how audiences want their news. Definitely, there is a need to inform the public and inspire action. But the media no longer, we don't have the monopoly of informing the media and inspiring action anymore. And that brings us to a lot of soul searching that the journalists have done over the previous years. In fact, I'm very happy by the question raised by CMFR. What are the radical changes in journalism, and what is the future of journalism? It feels validating, Ma'am Melinda, because before the 2025 elections, our question was, is journalism dead? So the question raised today in this panel is very validating, and now we see a future for journalism. It was pretty grim 2-3 years ago, the conversations we've had in our circles. I think there is a need to understand the audiences, and we need to give them news, how to inform them in the manner they want it. But I like a term in one of the discussions, sunduin. It's not enough that we give them the sound bites. It's not enough that audiences should be satisfied with short videos of important stories. But we recognize ito yung paano mo sila susunduin so they get interested enough, because it's an attention economy, and that's reality. We do a lot of, at PCIJ, we've done a lot of conferences bringing together journalists and social media content creators to learn from each other. Precisely so investigative journalism can gain more audiences. And we always say, they tell us you have to have 3 seconds of compelling video for the audiences to even watch your video. Because even you have a comprehensive Q&A on an important topic, if the 3 seconds, if they do not capture the audiences, no one will watch your video. So the conversation has been, let's have compelling videos na susunduin mo sila so that they will be interested enough and they will read the long form. I think compelling stories still need comprehensive research, and I will always defend long form, and we've seen that at PCIJ. When we did our political dynasty stories, we were so surprised that people were reading it, because a lot of talk shows, a lot of social media content creators picked up our data on the maps of political dynasties. It became a conversation during the elections, and it brought them to our website, and we've seen significant traffic to the story. I think that's what we mean, ma'am, when we know that audiences have changed. We need to be a bit more creative to pull them so that ultimately they will have to read the long forms, the documentaries, because it is never enough to just watch the 3-second or the 10-second videos.
Can I hear from the audience? I mean, do you still read? Is there a point? Or is the interesting video enough of the bait, and then you move on to the next video and the next video? Can I have some reactions from this audience? Reacting to Carmela? I see nodding heads, but I don't have any hands raised. Would anyone want to take this thread of conversation, if you wish? And since it is a discussion that involves not just the panel, but an exchange with you as an audience, anyone? Yes, the hand in there. Yes, miss. If you would like to take the mic, someone, the staff can take around the mic as well. Go ahead and.
So, hello everyone. I am Honey from Adamson University. So to answer the question of Miss Melinda, honestly, as a member of, or as part of the Generation Z, or the Gen Z, I agree with what the panel have said earlier, that they are delving into the visual form of contents in delivering the story, because honestly, it has been, I think, a right formulation nowadays, because as per to my experience, I only read articles when I see it online and it is trending. That's why I think there is something in there that I have to read for the full form of the article or the full-blown article. I only hear it from the influencer first. If it is engaging enough, then I'll try to find the source where the article was published and then read the full story after.
You do that?
Yes.
You're saying that you do that?
Yes.
Because you feel that you have to do that?
I think yes, nowadays, yeah.
Anyone else wants to share or agree or disagree?
Hi po, good morning. My name is Christia from Hiram College. And personally, I think that having short form videos first and then transitioning to long form media is a great way to balance or to meet halfway. Kasi right now, it's a great way for the journalists to meet what the audience, para makuha nila yung attention ng audience and para mabigyan nila yung kailangan ng audience, which is information. And then, with that, through the short form, through the videos and then the long form media, doon na po papasok yung individual responsibility natin bilang Filipino citizens to crave for informations na kailangan po natin. So with that, it's a form of meeting halfway, yung the journalists delivering the news to the people and then the people wanting or receiving the information na kailangan po nila.
Let us not forget that journalism is made up of different forms, different formats. There are long articles, there are also shorts that give you the gist very quickly, so you have a feeling that you have been in touch with many of the ideas that you wouldn't necessarily look for, and that you are drawn then to more in-depth sources by the topics that, because of your profession, because of your interests, you would go to. This is something that we have to remind each other about, that there are different sources and different ways of getting information, and that we must explore, given the richness of media that is around us, that we must take advantage of that. That is the advantage of this age. And unfortunately, we do get used by habit to go to a certain kind of thing, and that is where we are stuck. And our friends are the same way, and we are stuck further by the group that we keep, and that is how you limit your exposure instead of opening yourself up to the richness of everything that is around you. Yes. I am being asked to go back to questions after this because we can proceed to the open forum later. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. So, hello, I'm Anton from UP Diliman Department of Journalism. I'd like to ask Din, well, not necessarily a question, but we're in an age now where journalism isn't just writing, especially in our curriculum at least. We have to put ourselves in different positions that push ourselves from in different multimedia ways of reporting. So it's not just writing in this time. So we have to be not only flexible, but we have to also to adapt to how the audiences consume said media. So as the best case scenario would be, yes, people read our articles, yes, but is that the most optimum, the best way for it to be digested? So there are different nuances as well.
You have a question? You have a question?
No, I'm just adding on to the inquiry.
Okay, so
Ayun lang po. I just wanted to mention that po regarding
that
it's not necessarily just about writing now, but more on there are so many different avenues to how journalism is portrayed in this age po.
Yes, we did establish the point that journalism has taken all kinds of forms, and you take what you can do with the time that you are given, but you must always try to expand and be in touch with the things that you're not in touch with, because that is the function of journalism. It puts you in touch with the things that you do not experience yourself. So we go to the next question. Did I get an answer to the question that has the meaning of news changed then because of the way we consume news? Somebody pointed out that the elements of news remain the same. And that's my answer. The elements of news remain the same, and yet we have the various formats that are presented to us. And how do we make sure that we are in touch with the news that matters? Has social media enlarged the world of news, or has it enclosed us into smaller and smaller circles of interest? Can we talk about the impact of social media, in which, because you are in social media, you feel that you are in touch, and you're never going to ask yourself, what have I missed today? Having been in touch with the usual people that I am in touch with, am I just seeing a small slice of the world, or I'm happy knowing only so much? Are these questions that bother you? Yes? Lian?
I just wanted to highlight that that's basically the challenge for us now, right? Because there was a time when I was born into this time, I was trained into this time, where we had the monopoly of information, and audience really went to us. They switched on the TV, they checked Inquirer.net or GMAnews.tv for information. Now they don't check us. So I think ang nag-flip is yung challenge sa journalists. Before, we were the only source of information. Ngayon, nag-flip yung challenge. We now have audiences used to chase us. Now we have to chase you. And I think, and just going back to your earlier question, Mamil, does it bother me that the written word has lost some of its majesty? Sometimes it bothers me, but then natanggap ko na what makes the written word of my generation more supreme than the TikTok grammar of the Gen Z generation. In defense of the Gen Z, I think you're so cool. I like watching your reels. So I think the challenge for me now is to not get obsessed with the old ways, but actually chase you, because that's my responsibility. And I think the audiences are smart. Akala ko dati papanoorin lang yung video ko if it's just 1 minute. I edited an 8-minute reel. It's not even short, but it gained like 2 million to 3 million views. And now people are coming up to me on the street saying, oh, I know now what unprogrammed appropriation means. So I think although we have come into that era where the written word is relegated into secondary and now the video at Kenkoy na tayo sa video, I take the win that now more audiences know what a notice of disallowance means, what an appropriation means. So I take the win for journalism that despite having to adapt to social media, that we're still able to take these spaces for us.
Should we rethink the conventions of news as we learn them? Are you
It's
adding
okay
to the...
I think there's a lot of challenges. Journalists now, ma'am, looking at ways to reach to audiences, but we definitely cannot be silent about the role of technology. So what we've been talking about actually is the shift from editorial gatekeeping, where newspapers define the public discourse, to algorithmic gatekeeping, where the technologies define what audiences see. We see this as a challenge. We don't like that technologies are deciding what the public see, but this is where we are. And I think when we talk about adjusting to the wants and the needs of the audiences, because we still want our long form to be read, and how do we make that happen if this is the reality that we face?
Yes.
Listening to our audience, no? Siyempre mga Gen Z. Tayo mga Gen Z representatives din tayo dito. So, I think at this point, our audience is just really overwhelmed. There's just too many information around and not a lot of explanations. So I think there's still a space for us here. And as we know, misinformation thrives where clarity is absent. And that is where data journalism comes in, because you cut through the noise, the emotions, and the misinformation. Like for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's talk about the elections. Throwback to 2016, when former Vice President Leni Robredo won the vice presidency. Ito yung narrative. There was a misinformation going around that natulog lang kami, si Leni Robredo na nanalo. Ano nangyari? That was the narrative of the camp of BBM, right? But the story behind that was that when the votes were coming in, these were from the bailiwicks of BBM. And then nung midnight na, dyan pumasok yung boto galing sa Camarines, sa Visayas, the bailiwicks of Leni. So what we did in 2025, this was a proud moment actually for us sa TV5, no? Kami na una nag-break nung top 12, actually top 15. After breaking the top 15 senators, I made it a point to share to the audience where the votes were coming from, because that provides important context on the votes that we're seeing, the top 15. Saan ba nanggagaling yung mga boto? And again, historically, it comes from Metro Manila first, Calabarzon, Luzon. Sumusunod yung Visayas and Mindanao. That provides important context. And that is why, if you would notice, paulit-ulit narrative na noong 2016, nandaya si Leni, ganun. Pero noong 2025, we saw Bam Aquino finishing number 2. And we were able to explain where the votes were coming from. He dominated the Lingayen-Lucena corridor. He was number 1 there. He was able to get votes in Visayas, in bailiwicks nila, but also in Mindanao. That is why the narrative wasn't as katulad nung 2016, di ba? By the way, I wasn't part of media pa nung time na I would have wanted to explain that.
The point
So the point is, our audience is overwhelmed. There's just too many information, but not a lot of explanation. But if we use data journalism, and in a way where we explain beyond surface level, I think the audience still cared. Because at that time, nung kay Bam Aquino, it went viral. So nandun pa rin naman yung essence. People just want clarity in a world that is noisy and chaotic. And data, for me, can serve as an anchor in such a chaotic world.
Are there questions from the audience that you would like to ask? No? Not ready yet? Yes? You have a question?
No. Can I add something to the discussion po? Gusto ko lang po i-echo, no, yung sinabi about algorithm, no. Our newsroom is a victim of shadow banning, no. So shadow banning basically drowns your newsroom to the feed of the social media. And one thing that syempre hindi po namin iniwan yung pagsusulat, no, in-depth articles, ganyan. Pero we are in the context or in the reality that we are forced to adapt. We are forced to check new strategies to how to reach audiences. Pero at the same time, gusto po namin i-emphasize na yung pag-reach sa audiences, hindi lang siya limited sa social media. This is where the power of community engagement works. No? That is why we reach out to several organizations, people's organizations. We organize discussions with them with our reports. And then we also engage with different fora using our reports, no, so that they could at least feel grounded with the information na pinoprovide namin. Ayun po siguro yung, kasi parang pumasok po ako sa media, it's already the social media. Unlike, of course, dati na merong print, meron pa rin naman hanggang ngayon, no? Pero yung monopoly of information kasi ay nasa social media na ngayon. Ayun lang po.
Anyone wanting to ask a question? Okay, we should ask if the speed with which the news cycle spins affects the capacity of critical groups, the academics or other thought leaders who ponder the changes because they must chart some kind of future with new ideas. We may have more media, an endless flow of information and ideas, but are we able to take the time to pause and to discuss how we move forward in the aftermath of especially simultaneous crisis? For example, what we've just gone through, which was both political crisis as well as the COVID-19 crisis. After which I tried to check how much there would be in the media to review the experience, to find out the impact of that experience, and there was very little, to the point that I felt that we should try and find out in different ways what in fact has changed because of that collective crisis. There is not enough time, I think, for us to think about the impact of dramatic and radical change. If I am not going to see any hands, I am going to proceed to ask questions of our panel.
Please feel free to raise your hands. Do not be intimidated. Kwentuhan to. Let's look at it as parang Gen Z meets Gen X.
I mean, that's why I pause and I want you to get up on that microphone and ask a question or just express your
give
reaction.
your inputs. We all learn from each other. So just raise your hand. I'll pass the mic to you guys. Okay? Huwag kayong mahiya.
This is a very shy audience. You know, we don't have all day. And at a certain point, I'm going to say that we're ending the program, and you will not have asked the question that you are rehearsing in your head to ask.
That's a good point. One thing we noticed sa previous previous seminars, last minute, bigla magtatayuan yung mga tao para magtanong. Ba't ngayon lang kayo nagtanong? Kasi nagpo-formulate ng questions. Don't do it that way. Just jump in. Okay?
Yes, go ahead. Our mics are
Hello. And I'd just like to add to your point, Ma'am Melinda, because you said something about, are we taking the time to reflect from a simultaneous crisis? And I think it's also the siguro shortcoming or problem of daily beat grind, wherein parang tayo mga reporters, may required tayong mag-submit ng stories every day for attendance, even though that story might not necessarily be the most impactful. I realized that some of my best stories are stories that I was able to do because there are days na chill lang. It's a slow news day. And because it's a slow news day, I was able to dig deeper into stories na hindi pa napapansin noon, or stories, shoe leather reports or enterprise stories that I wanted to pursue. My story on Zaldico, although mukha na akong Zaldico this year because it's really my most major story this year. But it took me a year of investigation, and I was able to do that story on days that my editor allowed me na, sige, wag ka munang hindi muna kailangang i-cover yung Congress today dahil hindi naman malaki yung nangyayari sa House of Representatives today. So there were days that I was just able to look at the data. I was just able to scrape the DPWH website. There were days that I was able to just talk to my sources, have coffee with them. And because of that, I am able to produce a story that I feel like created a measurable impact.
And what was that story?
The Zaldico story po about is a business interest. It was published, I think, 4 months before the flood control corruption scandal broke, with the support of the Journalists Against Corruption of PCIJ.
Maybe just to add to what Dwight said, totoo talaga na grabe yung pressure and demand sa beat reporters. I think marami dito is journal student. Hindi naman kayo ignorant of the polyecon side of the industry na we can talk all day about how much we want to do certain stories, certain investigations. You and your editor are in sync sa ganitong stories. But then when it comes to the corporate side of things, that's when things get a bit more complicated, get a bit more difficult to do. Kaya I kind of somehow blame yung short memory or yung amnesia ng public dahil may mga certain limitations yung media sa pagdiin ng certain issues dahil sa corporate side.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, you've actually had stories where you could not put out the story because of corporate interests?
There are stories na hindi talaga nakakalipad dahil sinushoot down, but that's 50% of it. But what I'm talking about, the other 50% is just like what Dwight said, because of the demands of the quota, the daily quota, na kailangan 4 to 5 stories a day. Certain newsrooms demand 7 to 8 stories a day. So how would you pursue investigations if you have to turn in 8 stories a day? Reality siya.
Is that still going on? The 8 to 5 stories that you're required to file because your editors really want to make sure that they have something to fill up the space? I mean, this takes away the editorial function, which is to determine what you should be covering for the day. I mean, when I first heard about this story, I was appalled that that was in fact news practice in many newsrooms, that they would be required to file as many as the stories because that was the practice. Instead of an editorial team basically deciding what were the stories that the public needed to know about and how much of it could be delivered by what members of the team, which is what an editorial meeting is about.
Well, just a short agreement, it is appalling and I think it disfigures the profession. What I mentioned na example, yung 7 to 8, it doesn't happen to me, but I know several reporters na yun yung karga nila pag nakikita ko sila sa coverages. And I don't blame them na hindi sila malalim na reporting kasi ganun yung demand sa kanila. Imposed yun sa kanila ng bosses nila. And we know that media is a business. Hindi natin dinedeny yun. We are not blind to this reality. Pero parang medyo disfigured na talaga yung profession na yung mga owners ng media, sorry to go there, is hindi na talaga iniisip kung ano ba ang purpose ng isang newsroom. That's what I think.
And the purpose of the newsroom is what? Just to be specific, we know what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
No, I will be speaking po kasi as syempre as an alternative media, no. But for me, the purpose of newsroom is to look for the welfare of its journalists, no, to ensure that their journalists have proper protection, have proper mechanisms to ensure that they are reporting responsibly, ethically, and excellent. So ayun po yung perspective ko in alternative media, but maybe some of the panelists could share.
I want to follow this up with a call to newsrooms. We also have a responsibility to make sure that our audiences, the Filipinos, get the best journalistic work out of us collectively. So I wish we follow up each other more. I wish I could just follow up PCIJ's reporting or Chi's reporting. I wish I could be less obsessed about following up their scoop, or kunin ko din yung scoop niya. But instead, just take her report and ask the officials. Kasi sa mga estudyante dito sa beat, minsan meron silang mga reporters na ayaw talaga nilang sagutin. Meron silang mga reporters na hindi mai-invite. So I just wish that if this reporter comes out with a compelling report, then the others just do not move on in the press conference without that question being answered. And we can all benefit and we can all report from that answer. So I think yung frustration ko lang ngayon, I wish that newsrooms would collaborate more formally with each other, because I think that's our best chance.
You mean the different newsrooms and the different news organizations should be talking a little bit more so that you have a way of agreeing what is the most important thing that we have to deliver to our public. What should they know about? Indeed, the competition, however, among news organizations prevents that, which is unfortunate. But in my time, we didn't care what the others were saying in our newsrooms. If we wanted to collaborate, we collaborated, and nobody had to know. Yeah, absolutely. You have to play the game. Yes, go ahead.
I will confirm, ma'am. I used to write 8 stories when I was covering Congress for a decade. But I think because we now do not have the monopoly on informing the public, it presents hopefully an opportunity, because nakikita naman natin yung collaboration, how we follow up on political dynasty stories. Media has put it front and center. Campaign finance, flood control, corruption. These have been the topics that we've all collectively covered. I feel there has also been an unwritten agreement among journalists, investigative journalists in particular, not to duplicate what one has already published, because it's not a very big community. We talk to each other. It's a small community. Saldico has been published by Rappler. The other organizations will look into the other facets of corruption. I think there is that kind of collaboration. I think it presents an opportunity, because if the content creators, influencers can now beat us into informing the public about developments in Congress, in the Senate, we can now focus on our responsibility, which is watchdog journalism. Because I do feel that in recent years, we've seen that there is attention on investigative journalism, data journalism, because audiences want more explanation. And simple maps, difficult to produce, but they go viral. The numbers, the explainers, and the investigative reports, they are getting more attention, I feel, because some newsrooms are no longer obsessed with the 8 stories a day. I think it's an opportunity to shift, to definitely change the beat system that has ruled us for decades. More than 8 pa nga yung ibang newsrooms eh.
I remember doing 10 stories a day. Covering Malacanang. Pag cabinet meeting, lahat ng cabinet members nandun, so you get 10 stories a day. So dutin ko lang yan, collaboration lang, lalo na sa commercial media, may yabang kasi ang commercial media. May mga instances na one network will say, wag mong pansinin ng story yan kahit malaki, kasi hindi atin yan. So dead man na lang yun. And then the story dies because nobody else follows it up. So
which is really stupid.
Yeah. So that's where collaboration should come in. I mean, there are stories that are bigger than networks or bigger than your media agency. And those are things that we should follow up.
Also, because stories are rich. I mean, there are so many angles to a particular story, and one media organization making that break doesn't stop you from exploring all the other stories that are related that can be done. I've always been perplexed by this. Wag na natin gawin kasi ginawa na ni ano. Hindi naman nila ginawa lahat eh.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah. Okay, dead man na lang kasi kanila yan eh. Istorya kanila yan eh.
Yeah,
Mas malala
it's
yun.
a kind of like surrendering to a model that was not intended for journalism. Because journalism should continue to ask the questions and making sure that the entire story has been told, or other related stories that enlarge the story. And it should be a constant discussion in the newsroom, how one can go back to an old story, in fact, and make it timely again, and recall what happened and what lessons were learned then. But the problem, I think, is that there's very little conversations going on in the newsroom.
Yeah. Yeah. At the ground level, the reporters usually cooperate at the ground level. Dati kami sa beat, magkakalaban kami, pero, ikaw, harangan mo yung kotse ha, tapos dito kami sa kabila. Minsan ganun eh. So you cooperate, even though your managers don't know. Anybody? Nothing.
Anyone from the audience that would like to ask a question? Yes. Or make a comment or make a point.
Hello, good morning. I am Elijah from Miriam College, a comm student po. So, nowadays, siyempre tayong mga Gen Zs, kahit hindi Gen Zs, talamak ang social media. Like, the first thing we woke up in the morning, usually TikTok, Messenger, Facebook, YouTube, kahit saan ka pumunta, like, sobrang daming informations ongoing to the point na nagkakaroon ng overload of information. Like, somehow, we are being fed, but not so informed. Kaya like, and talamak din po yung mga social media influencers, content creators. Like, ikaw, kapag pumupo ka lang, ilagay mo yung cellphone mo, mag-video ka lang, you're creating content. So like, there's this saying that, I wrote it down, that a journalist can be a content creator, but a content creator can never be a journalist. Like, what's your point po, or like your thought with that? Kasi somehow, some influencers are just like adding things eh. Like, yeah, may information, but they're like adding noise to what we see, to what we know somehow.
So your question is?
It's like, since as a journalist, like what can you do? It's like partnering with influencers, or like what call to action you can do for that po?
Make them watch you. If you feel like there are many content creators and influencers who are creating more noise than information, make them watch you. If you are the journalist, student journalist ka man, professional journalist ka man, make sure that your content is so compelling, ikaw na lang yung papanoorin at hindi na nila papanoorin yung iba. And that's difficult kasi sabi nga sa akin ng producer namin, sumayaw ka nga minsan, di ko gagawin yun, ever. But uminom na ako ng tsaa, nagmumura na ako on film, and I've been reluctant at doing this for the last year, but you know, I've seen the successes of video form. Again, marami nang nakakaalam ng mga boring stuff in my head, tas biglang alam na ng mga tao ngayon. Yung mga jurisprudence sa Supreme Court na akala ko was just for me, now they know because we made it a little bit funner. So that's my advice. Make them watch you instead.
How do you do that?
Understand the world of TikTok and Instagram, which requires doom scrolling sometimes also.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, na-realize ko lang din, mayroong appetite for the audience to understand what we do behind the scenes. So, may mga video stories ako where I just explain my process. Like, for example, nung pumutok yung naging viral na si Claudine ko, the niece of Zaldi ko. How do you explain the relevance of this Nepo baby in the general discussion? So, her father owns a company that bagged billions of pesos in DPWH projects. But how do we tell the audience kung paano natin nalaman yung information na to? So in my video, I showed them the spreadsheet. I showed them how I computed the contracts. I showed them where I got the values from the DPWH website. And even in my future videos, in my other videos, I told the public how I sourced my stories. Pag may isa akong storya, nalaman ko, oh, this person is allegedly corrupt. How did I know that this person is corrupt? I told them that I interviewed at least 3 sources. Ito yung mga pinagsasabi ng mga sources na to. When a source offered to provide information on condition of anonymity, I told the audience why that was the case. This separates us from content creators because content creators don't necessarily have these tools or don't necessarily observe these journalistic skills that we journalists do.
Okay, and we have 3 in the audience who are wanting to engage you. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Sabrina Jokno. I am from St. Scholastica's College, Manila, and also a mass communication student and part of the Scholastica and the college newspaper of St. Scholastica. My question po, circling back to Ms. Buwan and Ms. Fonbuena's point about how do we adjust to the modern audiences po and the changing media landscape. Aside from your answer po, Ms. Buwan, of make people watch you on what you report on, how do you get them to care about the things that we report on po? You mentioned na, I'm not sure if it was Ms. Buwan or Ms. Fonbuena, na sunduin po natin sila. But aside from that, how do we just not hook them but get them to care and take action po kasi?
How do you engage them to the point that they will act?
Yes po, and
because
care of the, yes po.
So this is the place for investigative journalism and watchdog journalism, because what sets journalists apart will be the history, the nuance, the context that you provide to important issues of the day, because that's not always present. Sabi nga ni Edson kanina, people need more explanations. Because sometimes when we inform the public, when we try to inspire action, we talk about problems that are never new. The problem with our politics has been there for decades. And it's important to give them the history, give them the context. And if we inspire action, or if people are inspiring action, how do we talk about it as journalists? We talk about the history, that some of these proposals have been made before. And what happened? Who were the proponents? Are the proponents back then the same proponents now? Maybe that will expose the agenda of political players in the country, because it's the same problems we've been facing. So the history that maybe the Gen Z are not very familiar with, it's important to look back, because a lot of these are repetition of the past.
I think you need not to look at the media for all that you want to happen. I mean, the media is only one of the forces at work. And that, I think, institutions of learning, your teachers, your classrooms, etc., should also be engaged in many of these public issues, so that you work with your group to be able to formulate reactions. At first, how do we react to this? Do we like it? Is it something good? Is it good for only a few? Is it good for a lot of people? Is it something that some people may not like but is necessary to happen, etc.? I think there is far too little discussion resulting from the news that you get on the media. That's why it seems like a repetition of so many things that have happened before, and nothing is happening, because we don't have that follow-through action. We don't have the drive. And we let it fade away. Yes?
I just want to answer your question. Obsession ko to, sorry I just want to take you along with my obsession. I do believe talaga that human rights is a leap of faith. Hindi siya it's something, it's a moment in your story, in your video, in your text that your reader wants to leap and care. Because that's your question, right? How do you want people to care? At naniniwala talaga ako that people are driven by self-interests. And that's not necessarily bad because self-interests are not bad. So Pinoy, our self-interest is family always. Tapos ngayon na ang pangit ng ekonomiya, ang taas ng presyo, our self-interest is really paano ba tayo magkakaroon ng quality of life. And I think that's what made our prime water reporting effective at that time, at that moment in time. Kasi nakuha niya yung galit din ng mga tao, yung interest ng mga tao at that time. Naalala ko may isang opisyal sa Bulacan na parang, oo nga, may napanood nga akong lola na 85 years old na nauuntog. Tapos sabi ko, sir, storya ko yun. Because pag nakita mo yung lola mo, ayaw mo naman yung lola mong mauntog para maghanap ng tubig. And that's the same principle I apply on human rights stories. It's like, people probably will not care about a political prisoner whom they do not know. They should, but they might, and it's not their fault. So how do you make them take that leap of faith? Maybe find an angle, find a story, find an anecdote, and basically talk to their self-interest.
So the next person in line, those who are asking questions, if you haven't noticed, there is a line forming already in the middle of the hall. You're wanting to respond.
Add another point.
Sure.
Because the question was, how do you make people care? And one of the things when we talk about data journalism is that people are averse when it comes to numbers. Like for instance, when we talk about recently when peso hit an all-time low of 59.17 pesos to a dollar, people don't really understand the numbers. But if you make those numbers relatable, understandable, and meaningful to the public, like if you show people that a higher exchange rate would lead to higher costs of petroleum products, tumaas ang presyo ng gasolina, tumataas ang pamasahe, tumataas ang bilihin sa palengke, all these things would eventually lead to inflation. Ramdam gut issue. So you're translating those numbers to something that is felt to an everyday issue. That's how people would care, right? Another example, during the pandemic, the DOH would just report the daily figure. Pero kita natin yung context ng number. Right, 2,000 cases, 3,000 cases. But you localize those numbers. Nasa ng surge nangyayari? Sa Visayas, sa NCR, saang areas. So mas nararamdaman ng tao eh. And that's when they would care and they would make your stories more impactful.
Good morning po. I am Marjorie Marcelo from St. Scholastica's College as well, and also I'm part of the college student publication of St. Scho. So this is a mix of, I have a manifestation and a question later on. I agree with Sir Edson. Actually, I got excited when I saw him kasi nag-trending po talaga siya sa X because of the explaining Bam Aquino's votes. And I really agree po with what he said. Now, we Gen Zs are so overwhelmed with the information. Actually, that's the point of my question na as Gen Z, as Gen Zs, we are so overwhelmed with so many information that it's difficult to discern whether it's true or not, whether we should add it to our report or not. May manifestation po dun sa data journalism kasi may parang question ko, and as a campus journalist, hirap na hirap po kaming sunduin yung mga kapwa naming estudyante. I think yung mga campus journalists dito nakaka-relate din po. And ngayon ko lang po na rinig yung data journalism. And though it is still journalism, I think the problem po is, I hope it's more accessible to us students. Kasi sa curriculum po, at least sa curriculum namin when I took up journalism, when I was a first year college student.
Can you decide what you want to either ask or the point that you want to make?
I hope yung data journalism po, what I want to say is I hope it's more accessible. I hope it can be more accessible to students. Now po, for my question po, as campus journalists po, how should we responsibly and effectively report on sensitive and complex issues such as the government's flood control crisis, and how can we present it in a critical way that is also both engaging and easily understandable for students?
So you don't think that the presentation of the flood control crisis has engaged the public sufficiently? Or
For students po, yes po, for students.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hello. Since yung question ay mas critical issues din, no, not only on the flood control projects, what we would like you to build an impression or to build an appreciation is to conduct victim-centered reporting. For example, try to always look for the lived experiences of the people first. That is one way for you to link and raise the issue, for example. Kasi kapag alam mo kung ano yung, maybe if you could write a feature, for example, about the how students in the flood-prone areas cope, for example, in these ongoing corruption issues, no, it's already a critical report that you could publish, no. So I think kasi parang sa amin sa alternative media, independent media, no, we would like to really put an emphasis, for example, to the lived experiences over the official data or official narratives of the government. Because for us, I think it has more weight, it has more value for the people to see ano ba yung nararamdaman ng iba pang mga mamamayan, especially in the displaced communities, marginalized communities, more vulnerable communities.
Okay, thank you. Can we move to the next question, please?
Hello, good morning. My name is AJ, and I'm currently an undergraduate student under the broadcasting course of College of Media and Communication. So before I ask my question, I would just like to highlight the importance or the sense or element of urgency in news. So especially in the current political situation with the flood control projects, that already sparked a sense of urgency in the sense of people wanting immediate answers or explanations to the current situation. And especially when a story or when a given context is urgent, I think personally from experience that leaves a situation more prone to dis or misinformation, especially let's say when some lone users on social media would want to try and give their own explanation to that story. So my question is, let's say despite barriers from, let's say, institutions or corporate interests, what can be done by investigative journalists or watchdog groups to try and set the stage for more nuanced discussion and information for the audience so that everyone can be informed on the same context on how can be informed through legitimate facts and groundwork for what can be done moving forward.
You are asking for more context in the presentation of news?
Basically, how can we be equally informed through these, through such stories, so that we can help prevent the spread of misinformation, especially when these stories demand a sense of urgency.
I think Carmela is ready to answer your question.
Hello. I think what you said, nuance is very important. That's what we should all aspire for. Kasi lahat ng issue, political financing, political dynasties, corruption, these are not isolated stories. There's an entire political ecosystem. I think it's also our job as journalists to make this clear. What is the relationship between all of these controversies? Flood control, corruption, questionable appointments, political financing, political dynasties. And I think as journalists, we should have this a better understanding of the complete picture, that these controversies aid something. Things are happening, a lot of movements are happening because it aids corruption. It aids one politician's attempt to stay in power or one politician's attempt to grab power. So when we talk about political financing, we're not talking about contributors alone, no? We're talking about contributors funding politicians who can give them in returns some benefits. Sometimes it's just one sentence in an isolated story on an ombudsman case that may seem to be ordinary, but if we have the nuance, the context, sometimes one paragraph, 2 paragraphs added to a simple story will make it relevant to our readers, because yung 8 storya na yun, all these stories can be blown into a bigger story because they're part of a pattern. As journalists, we need to be familiar with the patterns of power, and whenever we write a story, we have to ask ourselves, is it important for our public to know this, and why? And sometimes when we write stories, yun yung wala, the why. Why are we even writing about this story? Why is this important for the public and ultimately a voter, no, to understand? So I think that's the nuance that we need to give in our reporting, because otherwise these stories will not make sense if we do not have that context, the nuance added to the story.
Okay, so our next in line. Yes, please add.
Good morning pala.
Regarding the previous question, I think this is where really data journalism comes in. Again, misinformation exists and thrives where clarity is absent. And with data journalism, you're not just reporting, you're really reporting beyond the surface level. And you get the trust of the public because hindi siya he said, she said. Eh. It's not you go from impressions to evidence. It's not like, here's what I think. You go, here's what the numbers tell you. So something that's more objective, more factual, and I think that helps bring trust to journalism. And again, ako talaga, it's really my passion when it comes to using numbers and providing further context. Mas lumalalim yung storya eh. So you go beyond the headlines.
Thank you.
Good morning, panelists. My name is Keith. I am from the De La Salle College of St. Benilde. And I wrote down my question just to get straight to the point. So, do you think that by constantly pandering to the need of the audience for informative entertainment, as opposed to just pure long-form based information, that we're merely applying a band-aid solution rather than directly combating the issue of people failing to consume information in its purest form? So, Ms. Lian mentioned a while ago that in this day and age, yung mga journalists naghahabol sa mga tao. So, we shorten our content, we make videos, we adhere to trends on TikTok, all for us to make it more, quote-unquote, consumable for the masses. So, with that in mind, what measures should we take as journalists to not just inform people, but to somehow simultaneously bring back the time where journalists ang nasa tuktok ng priority ng mga tao when it comes to information?
Hindi ba nasa tuktok pa rin naman ng mga nasa tuktok pa rin natin ng priority ang mga tao kapag binibigay natin sa kanila in a better way? I just feel like there's no point in trying to make one form compete with the other. At the end of the day, our job is to inform people, and if they are informed via TikTok, so be it. I don't think it's pandering. I don't think it's following what they want. I mean, the videos I've produced are really, really boring topics. Like, notice if salawan sa may pakinon. Pero it blew up, like, million views. So I didn't think that was pandering. It was pandering to the form and format, but the information, the boring information was there. So I just feel like we have to ride this wave, and if we resist it, kung magmamatigas tayo na dapat yung alam natin dati, dapat yung masusunod, then that would be a disservice to our current audience who wants something else, I guess. I believe.
Ako hindi rin ako purist kasi yun naman talaga yung reality eh. People are consuming journalism not just through text but through videos. And if that's the case, then be it. And hindi naman ako, hindi mo ako mapapasaya o hindi mo ako mapapakanta sa mga sa mga video reports ko. But these are video reports that I am proud of because they reached wider audiences. And these days, some people come to me and they tell me that they learned something new and they learned something about our country that they didn't know before because they watch my stories. And that's something that I can be proud of.
Okay, so you try to reach out to the audience in all the different ways that you can, because you have to build the audience and you have to give that information to them.
And Ma'am Melinda, sa case naman namin sa Rappler, at least ako, I don't stop writing my long-form text stories. Actually, there was a time, yes, I was also bothered in my first 4 years in Rappler na I spent like 2 months, 3 months writing a story and then publishing the text. And people not caring that much or only a segment, less than 1,000 readers viewing the story. But these days, I just think of it as they can complement each other. I can write my text stories. It can reach Rappler's loyal readers who prefer reading stories. Although right now we gated na po yung aming mga investigative stories. But the thing is we find out that there are people who really have an appetite for these long-form text stories that they are willing to pay, and these are our ways of diversifying our business model. And after 2 days, 3 days, we publish our video stories so that we can reach audiences who don't have the capacity to pay for our gated content.
That's why journalism is diverse, because you are reaching out to an audience that's made up of different people. And that's why there are different formats. And you find what is the most satisfying for you. And it's not the same for every single journalist. Every single journalist works in different ways. Are you ready with your point or your question, please?
Hello, good morning. My name is Saya Aminoso from Miriam College. I study BA Communications. And my question is, having discussed all of that earlier about the changes in media and journalism as a whole, because in this career, it's always about what or how the audience wants to receive their news. But I feel like it's about time we ask the question back. Journalists, what format of journalism do you prefer? To make, to see, to share, or hopefully to share more with your audiences, in terms of personal reasons than job needs. Additionally, could you tell us about the pros and cons of the different formats that you use?
Okay, that's a whole lot of questions. And you might, one of you, pick one of them and basically address yourself to that particular issue.
Very short lang, what do I prefer? It's not about me. What does my audience prefer? And if my audience prefers video now, I'll do video. If tomorrow it's text, it's text. It's really not about what I prefer.
Well, long form talaga, no, ang ipaglalaban ko as an investigative journalist. I feel there is no alternative to long form investigative journalism. But having said that, it's really an entire ecosystem. There are investigative journalists who will produce those investigative journalism pieces, but content influencers, social media. If we have an ecosystem where the content influencers read the investigative report and they echo what is reported in the investigative report, that's a win. And I think that's what happened to our political dynasty series and campaign finance stories during the elections. So many newsrooms discussed the investigative report, they republished it, they talked about it in their shows. I think that's what we're facing now. It's not one organization putting out the information.
Nothing, yeah.
It's everybody echoing each other, following up on these stories. So this is really a collaboration, the collaboration that is needed. We all have our strengths. Some are stronger in video, some are stronger in research and in text and in data. It's really understanding what's important. Like if we're looking at 2028 elections, for example, which is very important, how do we report so that the voters will be wiser by 2028?
Okay, thank you. And can we move up the line, please?
So, hello po. Good morning. Good morning, Ma'am Melinda. Good morning, panelists. My name is Sophie, and I'm also from Miriam College. I'm a diplomacy student. I'd like to ask a very simple question. I apologize if it's too simple, but I hope that each panelist, including Ma'am Melinda, would answer. For context, I am very new to journalism. I began to write for the newspaper only last year, so I'd like to ask if you could share any tips, techniques, or words of wisdom to write a high-quality piece. Thank you po.
First, learn your grammar. Correct English if you're writing in English, and if it's not in English, then you must make sure that you use the language properly. That is an obligation. If you don't have it, then you must learn it before you do the business. Go ahead.
I think there are a lot of advice that you can read online, but I think believer ako na to be a good communicator, a good writer, you have to be an even better reader. You have to know not just reading whatever's on your feed, but to actively seek out the articles, the videos, all the content that you deem to be, wow, nabilib ako dito. Save it and deconstruct it, reverse engineer it so that you can learn on your own. Yun yung pinaka natutunan ko nung college na, and even now, to reverse engineer good work. So that also entails being a good fan, a good follower of reporters that you like.
Okay? So, you want to add to that, Edson?
Ako, again, use data journalism. Kasi, tip lang kapag if you use numbers, maraming ayaw ng numbers, so may exclusive story ka.
Ikaw lang ang pwedeng gumawa.
Ikaw lang ang pwedeng gumawa. But then, kidding aside, I think data, when really explained well, doesn't really intimidate. It empowers. And it helps you really explain to people how certain issues directly affect them. You can go from inflation, from the economy, to even the elections. You can talk about a lot of different things using numbers. And that really helps strengthen your story and also builds trust to your audience.
It means that you care about the audience and you want to know about them. And so you want to know how to reach out to them so that they can respond to you. Yes, as we move to the next in line.
Can I answer po?
Still answering the question. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think another aspect that we should be dwelling on is immerse yourself with community, no? Especially na yung dearth of stories, for example, in human rights, they are particularly found in the grassroots communities, no? So, do not, sinabi mo nga diplomacy student ka, I think there's also a new framework of learning within these communities. And also, maybe I would like to echo Chi's statements, for example, on reading more. Study, no? Dahil halimbawa, you could write more human rights reports, for example, if you learn the context na human rights are violated not only in the civil and political aspect, but for example, in economic, social, and cultural aspect. They are first violated when people are deprived of access to resilient infrastructures, to accessible healthcare, for example. Nagkakaroon lang naman ng blatant human rights violation because when people assert their rights to civil and political freedoms, nagkakaroon ng repression, no? So, study more context. Feed yourself with a lot of information, especially coming from the communities. Yun lang.
Okay, thank you. And the next in line, please move up.
Good morning po. I am Kezaya Tobias from St. Paul University, Manila. I am studying a Bachelor of Arts in Communication. My question would be, what are your thoughts on journalists becoming famous because of their coverage? Because people often say that journalists should not be the center or be the story. But regardless of how you become famous, whether intentionally or unintentionally, how should a journalist deal with this? Because it can impact or it can damage their credibility in delivering information. So, as a journalist, do you jump in the fame or do you use it as a hook to deliver the message more?
Your question is, how does a journalist deal with becoming the story rather than the one delivering the story?
Yes.
It doesn't happen that often, okay?
So we don't really worry about it. It is not the major thing that occupies us, that we have become the story, and therefore, how do we deal with this? Really, you could spend years and not become the story. So, do you want to worry about it, or do you want to say it's not really the problem that we are thinking about at this point in time? You become a story when other media cover, all right, take up your story and move with it. It becomes, however, the story that makes it. Sabi nila, hindi daw nila problema kasi hindi naman daw sila naging celebrity journalist. No, I mean, it is not the thing that journalists think about. Journalists think about how to get one's next story, or how to grow on the story that you started, whether you've taken it to the end, or whether you have left out many different important parts of that story. Because the story is never just one story. They are parts of patterns, and a good journalist can mine that and continue to report. That's why we call them beats. We call them areas of interest. Okay?
I think the question might be about journalists becoming social media celebrities to precisely hook the audience.
Well, social media or whatever, celebrity is celebrity. It will not last. Another bright journalist will come over, and that is it. And enjoy it, but don't let it get into your head.
Thank you.
The story is the point. If you don't have a story, then you might become the celebrity, but you're no longer a journalist.
Thank you po.
And yun nga, you're only as good as your last story. Yun lagi.
Is the old saying. Yes.
Yes, good morning po. I am Maria Zita. I am from UP Diliman. I'm doing a study. I'm doing my term paper on newsfluencers, sinabi ni ma'am. At nagsabi siya ng point, it will not last, maybe I'll be part of that paper. But for a background, I am an old school. Lumaki po ako sa bahay na in punto, The World Tonight, at naabutan ko po yung balita in English. And I'm so excited to see si Miss Tina Monzon Palma here. Ang question ko po is I'm transitioning. So nakita ko yung evolution na ngayon, mobile first. I also consume news. Now, I agree po, I am an advocate also of long form. Palagay ko, natututo pa rin tayo sa pagbabasa ng mas mahaba kesa yung mga nugget size, but I understand and alam ko yung hinahabol yung audience. Now that's where my problem is. Hindi lang po ang field ninyong humahabol sa audience, marami din po. I think kaya mayroong mga cloud chasers. Now, my question is, kahit matanda na ako, minsan I still fall for the wrong stories because ang mga nababasa ko ay ang tatas nilang magtagalog, ang gagaling nilang mag-English. Pero paniniwalaan ko ba ang isa na ang pangalan ay Kakosa, Kabayaw, mga blogs, pero ang kanilang pagsusulat ay ang tatas din. They know the paragraphs, alam nila yung point nila. And I'm not even talking about AI here. Manipulative and generative AI can actually produce also red
you
flags.
You have a question then?
My question is, how do we give red flags na ito ay hindi talaga balita?
Christina will take your question.
The question is, ano po yung hallmarks na false fake news? Well, first of all, alam ko pong talamak ngayon yung AI-generated or AI-manipulated clips. Yung deep fake, yung pagagalawin yung mouth kahit hindi yun yung sinasabi. Fake na audio. I think it helps na laging lateral reading, na pag may nakita po kayo na ganitong information, ganitong video, magbukas po tayo ng isa pang tab, check po natin yung details kung nangyari po talaga siya. Hindi po pwedeng nakafocus lang tayo sa isang tab or sa isang app or isang platform. Kailangan po natin siya laging i-check. And I think ang madaling hallmark po is ano po ba yung source. Kung yung channel or yung news source is parang hindi naman totoo or parang kahagawa lang or kapag may certain slant or opinion palagi yung content, isa rin po siyang hallmark na it is trying to masquerade as a news channel.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, good morning po. I'm Andy Manuel from Polytechnic University of the Philippines, currently studying Bachelor Arts of Journalism po. And this, my question is in connection with the social media discussion po kanina po. What I'd like to ask is, how does digital media cope with the limitation or the subtle censorship of social media platforms? Because based po sa mga experience ko as a student or as a user themselves po, TikTok or yung other platforms po, or in general yung mga algorithms po are usually late to show significant news. For instance, yung rally po during the September 21, wherein short-form videos or news po only resurface days later po, or during the Israel or Palestine war, where certain informations are limited or there is some kind of warning that prohibits people from accessing or perceive information po. Or yung mga simple contents po, like during the creations of videos sa TikTok po, wherein mga simple images or simple contents are being labeled as a violation against the regulation of those platforms po. So how do you deal with those limitations or censorship in general in digital media po? Yan.
Is there a lack of outlet for what you want to put out? Really?
No, what I'd like to focus on po sa question is how do they go around those limitations on those platforms po? Kasi sa TikTok po, medyo strict kasi po yung mga regulations nila sa apps na yun po. And example po sa Rappler, they publish mga short-form videos and such po, ganun.
Do you want to take this question?
Well, siguro yung nasagot ko dyan, if a social media platform is censoring certain content, you call them out. I think yung GMA News for a time or other publications na nag-publish ng video about West Philippine Sea tapos na censor or something to that effect sa TikTok, the reporters or the news publication call them out. Ang alternative is that we should build communities in such a way that we're not super reliant on social media platforms. And then yung ginagawa namin sa Rappler, although it's a tedious process na meron ding pushback sa newsroom. We have what we call a Rappler community app.
Yes.
It's our form of a social media platform. Although when I say pushback, because when it was launched earlier this year or last year, the app was slow and we had to change our yung paano namin sinishare, hindi na kami gumagamit ng Twitter. Rappler is no longer, well, the reporters are rarely on Twitter. Yung mga videos namin, no longer share on Twitter. Pero we have a Rappler app where we ask our loyal readers to sign up and they can join the discussion in our channels. Doon na rin namin binibreak yung news namin so that we're not as reliant sa social media platforms or social media giants as we did before.
I'll just add, I would like to live in a world where social media doesn't control my life. But that's not my fight. That belongs to others who have more power and have more platform. My fight is how to make the audiences who are still there listen and consume the news. So, aaralin mo siya. And this is credit to our producer who may be watching, si JC, inaaral niya talaga yung language ng Instagram, ng Facebook, ng TikTok. Parang sasabihin niya, wag mong sabihin yan sa TikTok, ayaw dyan ng mga tao sa TikTok. Wag mong sasabihin yan sa Instagram, baka i-wash away ka ng algorithm ng Instagram. So you study your platform very well, you doom scroll every now and then, and just make sure that what you're putting out on each platform is not pushed out by the censorship. You're saying, do I like it? Do I like going around, circumventing around these rules? I don't. Pero hindi ko naman kayang pabagsakin ng Facebook as of now, diba? So I'm making do with what I can is basically just do your due diligence and study your platform very well.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, can I add?
Yes.
Yeah, kanina na-mention ko yung shadow banning, no? And that is why community engagement is also important. At na-mention na rin yung kanina ngayon. But I would like to emphasize, no, for us, to build an appreciation on pushing back, no? Recently, Instagram permanently disabled our account. No, we were able to retrieve it through by appealing, no, by ensuring that we have to assert that this is a form of censorship, that this is a form of a violation of press freedom. So, fortunately, naka-reach siya sa Instagram, no? But this is happening not only in Meta's platforms, we are also shadow banned in Twitter. So, you have, katulad nung binanggit ni Ms. Lian, kailangan nating aralin yung mga platforms. Yes, that is that is one way to navigate the censorship, pero we also have to push back, no? Dahil kung hindi tayo mag-push back, hahayaan lang nila na mag-censor sila ng ganung karaming mga contents, and not only from us, but also to normal people, no, na kinakailangan pang i-assert yung legitimacy nila. Ayun lang.
Thank you. Thank you po.
Good morning. I'm Sasha Basilio from St. Scholastica's College, Manila, and AI has rapidly entered our lives, and we do know how greatly it has impacted us, especially journalists, campus journalists, and us as well. So my question is, what ethical boundaries should Filipino journalists observe when using AI-generated content for research and verification? And lastly, is it really unethical to use AI as journalists, as truth tellers?
Can I answer? I think if you use AI, you should say you've used AI. It's full disclosure. It doesn't stop you from using it, but you've said. It's like citing a source. You have to say, someone said. And so if you use a different mechanism, and it's not been your own research, etc., then you are obliged to tell your reader how you got that information. Yes?
Even for verification and for research purposes?
What verification and research purposes?
So we can ask AI if for resources, and they'll give us.
If you want to look at for resources, then all the research mechanisms are open for you to use. But if you use the content that you get out of it, then you have to say where you got it, if you're picking it up. Would you like to add?
Yes, but I'm quite dismayed, the topic that triggers me. AI should be your last resort, especially if you're a journalist. Siguro kaming ditong, we were trained where AI was nowhere to be found. Siguro okay lang sa aming discuss na ng AI ngayon because alam na namin yung basics, and actually AI is just probably our 10th step. But if you're a student journalist, you shouldn't be talking about making AI your primary resource. It should be your last resort. Don't ask Gemini. Mag-Google search ka na lang, taturuan ka ni Chi ng effective ways to Google search. For disclosure, sometimes I use Perplexity because mahirap mag-search ng jurisprudence sa ICC, for example. So, hindi masagot ni Google sa akin kung kailan ba nag-rule ang ICC on fitness for trial. Then that's how I use Perplexity, and I go to the sources. So, I just really have a profound problem with making AI our first resort, especially if we're journalists. And to echo what I heard in the GIJC sa Kuala Lumpur, AI is like transport. You do not build a rocket to walk 300 meters. You build a rocket to go to space. So kung 1 kilometro man yan or 15 kilometers, probably for Dwight, kaya niyang takbuhin yan. So make AI your last resort pag di mo na talaga kaya.
Hello. Thank you. So this is our last question for our session this morning.
Hello, good morning. I am Miko from Adamson University. My question would go back with the topic of information po. It is undeniable, and you also admitted that there is an overload of information. With that being said, there is so-called off-the-record information po. So when an information is shared with a journalist under the strict condition that it cannot be published or quoted in any news story, my question is, how...
can confirm it. It's not a story.
To hear the answer of Mr. Edson Guido po, especially dahil sa nag-specialize po siya sa data journalism po. So what's your take on that po, sir?
Off the record,
Yes,
in data.
Of the record information po.
Ako, i-add ko lang even the question earlier on AI, there was this, I joined the TV5 forum last month and someone asked me, do you let AI do your work? I said, actually, wala akong tiwala sa AI sa computation eh. Mas gusto ko yung computation ko kasi mas may tiwala ako sa work. So, off the record sources, yung work ko kasi, I'm more of work on numbers and then I let the numbers tell the story. So, if may sources, may sabihin sila on the side, ako kasi mas talagang numbers yung nagdidikta ng story ako. So that it's really factual and it's grounded on evidence.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Are we closing on that note? Yes? So we are ready to bring this program to a close. And before we do that, I would like to just remind everyone that this program honors Jaime V. Ongpin, business and civic leader appointed as Secretary of Finance by President Corazon Aquino, and more relevant to this program, an ardent supporter of press freedom. The current crisis that besieged the country's press, described by our panel in our first part of the program, recalls the period in which Jaime V. Ongpin, a non-journalist, engaged in the enterprise of news. Jimmy followed the news closely. In 1983, the economy was in crisis. Global oil prices had spiked, and the huge cost of oil stalled business growth, and nothing was being done about it. And Jimmy Ongpin stood up in a business forum to speak against the Marcos crony press, which was not covering the issues, pointed to its lies and propaganda as responsible for the public ignorance about the problems of the economy. Jimmy raised funds and advertising support from a few business companies to pay for the cost of paper, printing, and salaries for the employees of Veritas News Weekly, which was opened under the auspices of the Catholic Church, because the publishers felt that it was the best way to protect the newspaper. He observed editorial independence, but read the paper carefully to point out what needed correction and improvement. He offered to help journalists who were facing libel charges, including those employed in other media companies. And he shared information to which he was privy with us and asked us to pass it on to other editors so that the crucial stories would be shared by other media and thus gain more traction. He believed in building solidarity with the other media groups working on the same side of the political divide. Producing quality journalism does not depend only on journalists, but on the people informed by the press. And the rest of society shares the burden of growing a free and independent press that informs citizens about the issues so that they can make the right decision on the crucial issues that divide or unite our society. And on that note, we thank all the panelists who have sat in on this panel, and we thank you, our audience, before we provide the certificates for all the panelists, and may I call on their names. You're actually supposed to be sitting in the audience, but since you're all here already, you're just going to have to stand up. We present the certificates to Lian Buan of Rappler. Lian Buan and Ed Lingao will be doing the honors. Ano ba kayo? All right. Let me call on Christina Chi of philstar.com. Dwight De Leon of Rappler. Carmela Fonbuena, formerly with the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. Edson Guido of TV5. And Dominic Gutoman of bulatlat.com. And so this brings the program to a close. The special occasion enables us to cheer the media for work that is done well. We thank you all for joining us on this rare occasion. It is an annual event that my work in media development has proven useful on a personal level. It is a way of reviewing the media and sharing our thoughts about media and its role in national development. This is not usually included in the preparation that journalists undergo to start their career, but keeping the public informed is one of the most crucial services of journalism, providing a common source of news that keeps a community informed so that they can knowingly or not think together about the challenges that we face together. Journalists must not forget that this is a goal, not quite as often identified as the value of news, but it is. Keep this goal as part of the checklist to check how well they are doing their job. So I thank all the panelists on stage, and before I depart, we would like to acknowledge
I need somebody to hear, somebody to know, somebody to help, somebody to hold. It's easy to say, but it's never the
as it is already 12 o'clock and we never sent anyone hungry. Thank you, and we hope to see you again when we hold the event next year.